Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Comic Vault, the vast and ominous Comic Vault. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me tonight is Austin, the Day Ghost. Austin, it's been so long since we've done the Comic Vault, I totally forgot about the vast and ominous part, but it still is indeed. And you know what? It's even more vast and ominous because a lot of it is digital now.
Mm-hmm. I thought you were going to say it's dusty and cobwebby because it's been a while.
Yeah, well, it's digital cobwebs.
Oh, okay.
When they don't get read for a while, you gotta dust off the digital cobwebs.
Well, I hate when you have to digitally dust off your digital cobwebs.
That's nobody's favorite chore. Anyway, thanks a lot for being here, folks. We are trying to bring back the Comic Vault as regularly as possible. We're going to start tonight with some Batman. We are starting tonight Bat May here on the channel. We used to do Bat March, and then it occurred to Austin that you can... That May is like man with one letter changed, and so Bat May makes more sense than Bat March. And March got away from us, so we're doing Batman stuff this year. And not that we don't do Batman stuff throughout the year, but we're doing a lot more of it this month. And Austin picked, actually, for last year's Bat March, he picked this and we didn't get to it. So we're finally going to do Steve Englehart's Batman Dark Detective, 6-issue miniseries from 2005 that is like a decades later sequel to his long run from the 80s. And sequel, continuation, however you want to look at it. And I had never read this. I've always heard good things about this. I was meant to, so I'm glad we had an excuse to do this. And then I'm going to pick something in a couple of weeks, and I haven't decided what yet. I'm between a couple of things.
Very exciting. And I have a whole list on my phone of all the things to subject Cap to.
Most of the stuff on my list, or at least figurative list, I haven't actually made one yet, but most of the things I want to pick are just things that I've never gotten around to reading and want an excuse to read.
Yeah, exactly. I got like 50-50 on that.
I could spend a whole year on my end just doing Batman stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I could spend like 3 or 4 years doing that because in just with recent stuff.
Eternities.
Because that's all DC makes now is Batman stuff.
Yeah, and for like the last like 2 decades, so.
But especially since COVID. They had this policy for a while that like a massive percentage of what they made was just Batman because that's what sold.
But doesn't that start with Didio?
I don't know. I just heard from like comic shop owners when COVID happened that like the industry was in such bad shape. DC was like, yeah, just Batman now.
Just pump Batman.
Yep.
We have Super Batman.
You're right. There was
Batwoman.
Yeah, there was already a lot of oversaturation before that. You're right with the Dio, but I mean, like, we're talking like 85-90%.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
Like, it was crazy. And they've laxed off that now with some of the new stuff that we reviewed a few months ago. Anyway, so let's go ahead and start talking about this. Austin has, I think, read more Englehart Batman than I have, and so this was... I felt kind of remiss coming into this. This, by the way, real easy to read on its own, especially if you have read any Englehart. Like, if you've read like Laughing Fish and the Hugo Strange stuff, like that arc, or that there's a trade that collects that stuff that I reviewed a long time ago.
Strange Aberrations.
That's what that's called, and that's the stuff I'm most familiar with. I've probably read a little bit here and there, but it's been too long. Apart from that, but that's the big section of that I've looked at. But like, if you've looked at that, then you'll know who St. Cloud is, and you'll have a sense of Englehart's voice for Batman and his sensibilities, both in how serious and somewhat grounded it gets, and also in how nuts and bizarre it gets. And this does not disappoint on either of those levels.
But I think, if I remember correctly, I think a big thing with Englehart was that his Batman's also one that like sleeps around, like that is absolutely sleeping with women, and that's something that carries over into this too.
Yeah, and something that at least as much as they could get away with, we kind of also had an animated series, and that show is very inspired by Englehart, and they straight up adapted Laughing Fish, and to some degree that Hugo Strange story we were talking about, and other things from his run. And I think like you would also be real at home here, even if you haven't read the Englehart run, if you're a Bruce Timm Batman animated series fan, because his sensibilities for Batman's character and the psychology and his philosophy of what this character is all about is 100% lining up with what that show is doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Batman that thinks of himself as Batman first, where Bruce Wayne is the mask. His vow and what that means is just like it is in animated series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And Marshall Rogers does his first run, or at least parts of it. He does like all the stuff you're talking about, and then he comes back for this one, but it's also with, I think it's like Terry Austin, I think his name is. And I think the artwork in this book in places really looks like the animated series in a way that that original run doesn't.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, is Austin just inking?
It labels them both as artists, and it's
Yeah,
not
that's interesting
exactly what
because I think
Marshall
he's
Rogers looks
primarily
like.
known as an inker.
And it could be that, like maybe just like a heavy inker on it, because it's not entirely what Marshall Rogers looks like in other stuff. So
And that's really interesting because the sensibilities of it, I keep using that word, but like the look is very 80s. So even if it doesn't look exactly like what Rogers was doing, it's not updated to look more like a house style in the mid 2000s or anything real contemporary. Like I would not describe this art as contemporary, and even these covers totally look like throwback 80s covers.
yeah, absolutely. I think both in art and I think Englehart's writing, he comes in and just writes it the way he would have back then, which can
Absolutely.
sometimes be a fault, but I think it works perfectly here.
Yeah, well, the biggest issue I have, I guess, just right out the gate, criticisms. The biggest issue I have with the writing, and it's, well, maybe not the biggest, but as far as what you're talking about, and it's kind of minor because it kind of stops happening at some point. It is odd, and I made the same complaint with Batman Ego last week. It is a little bit odd that this looks and feels like the comics of the 80s and it's an extension of his run, but we're referencing things like American Idol.
American Idol, I did
And
think that was a little strange too.
and at one point, Joker says, I think at the same page, maybe, Joker calls someone dog.
Well, it's part of that American Idol thing because he's like humming out the theme, and then he does a
Oh, he's doing an impression of one of the panelists, isn't he?
yeah. I'm
Okay.
blanking on his name now, but yeah,
Yeah, I can't think of it either. I didn't in the moment realize that's what he was doing.
yeah, 'cause he's the one that's like, it's not for me, dog.
Look, if Englehart came back and for whatever reason had been like the main Batman writer, doing the ongoing and was doing those references, but in his old style, I wouldn't question it at all. But this being a 6 issue, I mean, it would be a little bit odd to not update the style at all if you were doing like the current run. But it's much odder this just being a like one-off 6 issue miniseries, and it's not. I don't know. It doesn't read present day at all to me. Like it feels like I. What was that series? Oh yeah, like Batman Confidential. It feels like a arc in Batman Confidential to me.
Well, there was a point where I was like, this must be like right after his run. Like it's just we're picking up, and then I went, no, because time has passed between Bruce and Silver St. Cloud. So like there is a passing of time, but it does feel like it could be around that same time, with the exception of what you were saying, with some weird references.
Yeah, and I mean we're ambiguous about how much time has passed, and you've always got the sliding time scale with comics.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's more about tone and just overall sensibility to me, where it's like that we're kind of just dropped right back in the feel of that time period. Don't reference stuff too current.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with that.
But he doesn't
That was
keep
the one that was
doing
weird.
it. It kind of stops at some point.
Yeah. Well, that was just the big one that really stood out to me.
Yeah, same here.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get into synopsis in a second. When I got to the end of this, I found myself thinking, especially with kind of how, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but kind of how abruptly it stops. And I'm not even criticizing it for that, but I just think it's kind of weird that the story he's telling here is like the last hurrah for this, because I really wanted it to keep going. Like it
Oh,
finishes, and I'm
okay.
like, oh, that's all you get. Oh, okay. Like it felt like
Interesting.
kind
Yeah.
of an arbitrary place to leave it.
Hmm. That's interesting. I really liked the ending, especially like that exact last page where it's Silver in front of the burning building. That's such a great image.
Yeah, we'll look at that
Uh,
in a little bit. I like
yeah.
it. I like it too, but it really just feels to me like I had sort of a resolve the chord thing where it feels like the first arc of a new run, not
Oh, okay.
not like just coming back to it for a minute.
So I think for me, and obviously, like the main kind of through line of the book is Bruce and Silver St. Cloud's relationship. So I think because of that, I kind of like that it's like this is the last moment that they're together and it just cuts and like that's it. So I
Yeah,
kind
no,
of
no,
like
I
it for
like that
that.
too. But it could have been writing her out, and then he keeps doing a story though.
No, and you are right about that. But he could have done that.
And that's a testament to how much I enjoyed this. Like I'm coming out swinging with criticism, but I
Mhm.
part of it is this is in a lot of ways very much my Batman, and I just want to see this continue. You know,
Yeah,
like if
absolutely.
I was putting myself in the time and place. If I had been reading this in '05, it would have hurt my feelings that that's all I got.
Mhm.
Because then I got to
That's
go
it.
back and just read regular modern Batman. Now, there's good stuff going on right then. I think that's in the
Mhm.
middle of both the Morrison and the Dini run. And so you
Mhm.
could have your pick of either of those tones and ways moving forward. And Dini would be closer to this than Morrison, of course. Uh,
Mhm.
but
Well, and now I feel like there's almost a meta level to it in that you're almost in the exact same place Silver is, where Batman's just left you. Like that's it.
oh, that's interesting. Yeah, what a jerk.
There's no more of this.
Hey, he gave you the opportunity to come back eventually, but it'd be like a sloppy seconds kind of thing. That's why she's done.
Exactly. We don't want a sloppy second arc of this book.
We'll talk about that when we get to the end, because I get where he's coming from, but that was a crazy thing to suggest.
Well, it is, but I also kind of like that Englehart's like, this is Batman. He's not very socially inept.
Or
I mean, he's got
he
like
is socially inept. Yeah,
oh, that's what I mean. Sorry.
yeah. No, no, I
He's
no,
got like the faux
absolutely.
social thing down, but when it comes to like real relationships, you can't do it.
Well, real quick, let's talk a little bit about, just to get this out of the way, because we mentioned the ways that this looks like an animated series, and that it's going along with the flavor of that.
Mhm.
Um, it's really interesting how, and you touched on this earlier, how Englehart kind of just drops right back in the same mode back that, like, he never left. Like it reads very riding a bike, and it's interesting that the things that he inspired are not coming back and seeming to influence him at all. Like
Mhm.
this doesn't feel like Englehart post animated series. It just feels like
Yeah.
more Englehart, and a lot of writers aren't able to do that. Like they'll come back and they just can't be what they were
Because you're a different
before,
person. Yeah.
or sometimes they're too much of what they were before.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
you get that with you would get that with Stan Lee sometimes if he would be writing in the 90s or the 2000s,
Mhm.
where he'd come back and he doesn't. He, I don't know. You almost, depending on what the guy is writing, you almost want to see him, kind of update his dialogue and not go back to the kind of more, stilted, silly, at least to our, modern ear, modern eye, kind of writing that he had back then. I don't know. I
Mhm.
don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just that, like, this is my taste. with a lot of it, but like I'm not having that with Englehart. I'm not wanting him to catch up. Like I'm fine with this exactly as it was.
Well, I think Englehart's just really good at that kind of like purple prosy kind of dialogue where like it is very comic booky, but it's very fitting. It's kind of what we talked about with Ego, where you want some of that gothic, not real worldness to
Yeah.
Batman, and Englehart has like the perfect voice for that.
Well, and I think maybe the reason that I'm okay with this staying like it was. I'm just trying to figure out like why I'm fine with that and why that's to my taste. I think a lot of it is using the comic medium to its greatest effect and doing a lot of visual storytelling. Whereas the issue that I would have a lot with like continuing to write comics the way we did in the '60s is narration boxes and thought balloons spelling everything out on the page, like all the action that you're seeing. Englehart never really wrote like that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's not insanely wordy. I mean, there's some places where the dialogue I think is overwritten. There's a St. Cloud speech that goes on 3 pages too long.
Yeah, certainly. And then there's things that I think are updated, like some of the close-up stuff I don't think necessarily we would have done this in the same way, like, especially like the eye stuff, especially with Joker, where like we'll go into his eyes for several panels, and I think that's a way in which he's modernizing, but it's still in the same ballpark. It's just maybe slowing things down a little bit.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Mhm.
I can't speak to that too much because it's been too long since I've gone back to that stuff. Did
It's been a
he
while since I read his original run, but
did those guys do the fancier panel layouts that you sometimes get in this book?
it's been so long. I feel like not as much as this, but maybe more than
And a lot of it is
like a
real
typical comic
straightforward.
Batman.
but
Yeah.
but occasionally we'll get pretty creative with the panel layouts.
When what I like about his original run is it is very like straightforward, like classic comic book stuff.
The other thing I wanted to say about the animated series and just other Batman projects that this reminded me of is this is post Phantasm, and with the St. Cloud relationship, it's a little bit Phantasm-y, where like he's
Yeah.
going back to an old fling that or an old flame that he wanted to have a committed relationship with, who already knows his identity. And it's a tragic love story where they try to get back together and they're not allowed to do that by the end. Because if you remember Phantasm, it's different here in that she doesn't end up being the bad guy, but with Phantasm, when Andrea Beaumont comes back, they actually try to rekindle their relationship for a minute, and then he finds out that she's Phantasm, and that doesn't work out. And the reason that they can't be together at the end of this is very different and more disturbing.
hmm Yeah. No, I think it's really interesting because I've always had the Batman where
Because her
he
boyfriend in the love triangle gets half his
yeah.
limbs ripped off, and that is shocking. I
Yeah,
never
the
saw
book
that coming.
what makes it better is that the book's never that graphic, so when it happens, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, I couldn't
Like it
stop looking at that
really.
panel. Could not believe that I was looking at that.
Yeah, and I think that's a place where they have restraint and they're not constantly going to that. So when they finally do, it's more visceral than it
Yeah.
would have been. Mhm.
Couldn't have done that in the animated series.
No, no, you could not have. Maybe a scythe hit him and he was knocked out, but that's about it.
And then you mentioned on the Captain Logan show tonight, because I had Austin guesting on that show, that Englehart comedically claimed that The Dark Knight was just this book. There is a decent amount of this in Dark Knight, and it's one of those things where I don't know how much they were looking at this. I haven't looked into that. The timing is right. This comes out in '05. That movie comes out in '08. It's entirely plausible that Nolan and Goyer and those guys looked at this book and borrowed the love triangle idea from it. It's interesting because that's the big thing, right? That it has in common with that, where you have.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Two-Face is in this because it's not with Harvey Dent that happens, but Silver St. Cloud is dating a senator who is running for governor in exactly the same way that Rachel is dating Harvey Dent, who is running for DA, or did he? Well, I guess he became DA.
Yeah.
But he's like doing fundraisers and stuff, and he is liked by Batman, who thinks that his heart is in the right place and he's after the same things Batman is after, and he wants Batman to be a part of the police force. Like all of that is in Dark Knight.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, and I know.
it's a similar kind of love triangle in that
Yeah.
ultimately she except the difference is in Dark Knight she picks Harvey Dent over Batman, and this is the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. When in some of the sillier parts of it with Englehart, I know, I think part of it was like both of them get half of their body messed up near the end, and Dark Detective,
Okay.
Dark Knight
Oh no. See,
was also just Two-Face. Like
yeah,
that
he
is
doesn't need to go to things that
Two-Face.
sound coincidental because all the stuff I just mentioned could have been taken straight from this book.
Mhm.
You also could potentially get to all of that without ever reading this, but it doesn't read as coincidental as they both have the word dark in them. It's Batman. Come on now.
I mean, this is also the guy who I think said Batman Begins goes to Tibet because his Doctor Strange goes to Tibet or something. I don't know. This Englehart's a funny guy.
Yeah, there's a curious amount of Tibet in Batman anyway, though.
Yeah, well, I think his whole thing was like Doctor Strange went to Tibet. I don't know about Batman.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. I think there's an O'Neill thing with Batman in Tibet, maybe, but
Probably somewhere. Batman's been everywhere at this point.
he's been everywhere, man. Robert Wildcapper,
Exactly.
you guys surprised Englehart never wrote any episodes of animated series? Do you think he was ever asked, especially since some episodes were written by Lin Wein, O'Neill, and Marv Wolfman, etc.?
Yeah, I wonder.
I wonder why he
Possibly.
wasn't brought in for any of the stuff that they just took from his stories.
Hmm. Yeah, it is possible. Obviously, Jokerfish is a little weird because that's half a adaptation of Jokerfish and half a
Yeah.
adaptation of Joker's Five-Way Revenge.
Here's an example of wild panel layout, which just really hits you sideways when you get it, because
Yes.
you've got a real typical like 7 or 9 panel layout, where we're just kind of alternating, and then you turn the page and it's like whoa. But it seems like we typically do it when there's hallucinations. Like this is a fear gas sequence.
This is a trippy sequence, yeah.
Yeah, but that stuff looks really cool. I love all the fear gas stuff in this.
Yeah, I love the art in this. Like it's beautiful. Marshall Rogers has always been one of my favorite Batman artists.
Yeah, I love how expressive his Batman is,
Mhm.
and that's one of the things I always appreciated about the animated series too. Is he does that thing where if Batman is surprised by something, or again like here like on Fear Toxin and seeing his greatest fears, like he does the big wide eyes and the giant open mouth, and that just looks cool in a bat cowl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and all of his takes on the villains look really cool. Like Scarecrow looks really cool here. I like with both him and Joker, we do a lot of eye close-ups. And I like obviously with Joker, it's just his eye, but with Scarecrow, there's like the brown strips of his mask over his eye.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
Well, we're really getting in the weeds with this. Let's just break down the story real quick, and then we can get into some more specifics.
Yeah, so Dark Detective is a book about you have oh my god, now I'm blanking on his name. It's Evan Gregory. Evan Gregory is running for governor.
I'm glad you remembered it. I couldn't think of it either.
We're kind of post the Rupert Thorne governorship from his original run, but like some of that stuff is stuck over. Like in that run, Rupert Thorne was very anti-Batman, and the cops weren't working with him anymore because of that, and that's carried over into this.
Yeah, I like that bit of continuity.
Yeah,
Like
it's really
Thorne is
cool.
not around, but his his grip is still felt.
Yeah, exactly. Some of that, like the remnants, are still there
Yeah,
of
that's what
when
I
he was in
meant. Yeah.
office. Yeah. So Joker comes in and he says, "I'm gonna run for governor too. Vote for me or die." And
Which is just a
uh,
great classic Joker premise.
yeah, exactly. So that becomes kind of the overarching villain plot of the book. And you also have Evan Gregory is dating Silver St. Cloud, who was Batman's love interest in that original run, and now they're recouping their relationship, and it becomes like Caps was kind of talking about earlier, I was like your love triangle. I was a three-way, the love triangle. And
It's Silver St. Cloud's three-way revenge.
exactly. And because Englehart's kind of bringing over some of that stuff from back in the day, there's also little villain plots that are happening in the individual issues. So you have a Two-Face story where he gets a clone of Harvey Dent that's his new friend.
That's the strangest thing in this.
Oh, it's
It's
wonderful.
very weird. With Dr. Double X.
With Dr. Double X. And Scarecrow also puts a capsule thing on Batman's cape, so
Look,
it's
Two-Face is wearing a Vince hat. You see
he
that?
is wearing a Vince hat, and it's like split down the middle.
Oh, I didn't even notice that it had the color split. That's awesome.
That's beautiful.
This is a book that
Uh,
does not take itself too seriously.
no, exactly. It takes itself about the seriousness level that you want it to. And there's also Scarecrow who put like a capsule thing on Batman's cape that's like periodically releasing fear toxin.
Very conveniently, anytime Englehart wants that to happen, you gotta
Yeah,
love the line,
exactly.
a certain number of hours.
Yeah. Well, I also just love with Scarecrow that it's like he doesn't really seem to have a bigger plan or anything. He just did this for the giggles, I guess.
No, and it's so contrived, like when things happen and that villains are just deciding to do things at the same time as the Joker is, because none of them are in league with the Joker. They just all
Mhm.
have these other plans to do this at the same time. And I mean, I like that idea. Some of it feels like Englehart going, I only got 6 issues, but I want to get some other rogues in there. So how am I going to do that? And it seems
Mhm.
like a thing that would happen sometimes. It's like if you're on call. I did this job. If you're on call for a funeral home, you'll have like 3 or 4 days where you get no calls, and then all of a sudden, all night long, you're just picking up bodies constantly. Like this feels like that, where it's like, oh, just all of a sudden, there's all these villains doing that happen to do things at the same time. But some of the timing is really convenient, right?
Mhm.
Where Scarecrow puts that capsule in his cape, and I don't know, Batman. It should be harder to do that to Batman, where he's not going to notice he has a thing in his cape.
Mhm.
But it just happens to go off when they're in the Batcave. When he brings Silver St. Cloud down to see the Batcave, so that he can have an excuse to accelerate them back to a romance. Like that doesn't happen without the Scarecrow gas hitting
Yeah.
them when it happens, where they start making out at the end of that sequence after they just said we're just going to be friends from now on. It's a platonic relationship. She left Batman in the previous run when she found out that Bruce Wayne was Batman, because of just the typical, well, I'm going to be too scared of what's going to happen to you all the time, and someday you're not going to get lucky and you're going to die. I can't deal with all of that, so I can't date you anymore. And then when she comes back, she says, well, we can be friends, but we can't rekindle a relationship. And also, I'm marrying the senator guy. And then the end of the Batcave sequence is, well, we're making out, and I guess we're getting back together, and she's gonna have to break up with the governor, and or with the guy running for governor. And I bought that okay, where like she's come around on his being a superhero and understanding how important that is. That speech that she has to herself about how she likes being the idea of being Batman's girlfriend.
Mhm.
That was laid on a little thick. That went on a little too long. But anyway, just the timing of the Scarecrow toxin and how contrived it is as a plot device is
Mhm.
hilarious. And then you gotta love how Batman finds out that Two-Face has this clone plot, because he's investigating the Joker plot or the Scarecrow plot, I think. He looks across the street, and there's something about a double header. It's like a baseball game. There's a double header, and he goes literally. He doesn't know that Two-Face is even doing anything. And he just goes,
that seems like a
the word double is on that sign. I better go investigate. And then Two-Face happens to be there, and I'm going, so, like, if there's ever a double feature at a movie theater, he goes in and checks just to make sure Two-Face isn't there. Like, that's amazing.
Well, so, like, I agree with you. Like, it is funny.
I laughed so hard at that.
My favorite parts is that Englehart knows all of this stuff is convenient and will throw in little lines that I really like about it. Like, Batman breaks in and they're like, Batman, like, what are you even doing in here? He's like, look, I didn't know you were doing anything. But it's my job to, like, watch everything in the city and know all of the red flags. Obviously, a double header was going to be something with you, Harvey.
Yeah, I know I'm in a comic book.
Yeah, and there's one later on where he's like, I think Silver St. Cloud is like, "Oh, are you saying Joker, Two-Face, and Scarecrow are all doing something right now?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he just lists like every one of his villains, and he's like, "That's my life. They're always doing something."
Yeah, he just starts rattling out. He's like Clayface, and yeah.
He's like, "If you're coming into my world, I hope you understand that at any given time, all of these people are plotting."
This is how it is. I'm always on call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
no, you're right. And like, I'm criticizing it because it technically is a narrative problem, but you're right. It's tongue in cheek about it. It knows it's doing that. And so it feels like nigh review proof with that, where like, I'm kind of just going through the motions and doing my job right now, but that stuff didn't, like, it was part of the entertainment, right? Like,
yeah, like, it's one of those things where, like, I feel like if you were to...
it's a problem, but it's more charming because the problem is there.
Yeah, and I feel like if you went to Englehart and said, like, this is an issue in your book, he'd probably laugh. Like,
he'd be like, yeah, I know. You got to take these things case by case, and it's about what it's after. And like, is it melodramatic soap opera? Yes, that's the genre. That's where we're at. You know, so like it is a melodrama. Does it have cartoonish logic sometimes and convenient timing and like contrived plot devices? Yeah, it's that kind of thing. Like,
yeah, like it's playing with the trappings.
And I never want to use that as an excuse for like, well, it's comics, so you know, and dismiss it for that. It's just there's an attitude about it where you can tell that that's supposed to be part of the fun. Like it is endearing for that.
Yeah, it's not so much like, oh my god, this entire narrative falls apart because of some of these weird coincidence stuff, as much as it's just like, yeah, like, look at the fun of what Gotham as a world is.
Yeah, it works because there is a lot of meat on the bone with the thematic ideas and the character work.
Mm-hmm. And there's that too.
It is a surprisingly tight story for those contrived plot points all at the same time, right? Like, we're not just throwing in Scarecrow and Two-Face willy-nilly. Like, we are saying something with them in comparison to Batman and the Joker. It's all about it's all about the way that the idea of fear impacts these characters, and they're all on kind of a graph with Batman on one side and Joker on the other side, and then everybody else is in the middle as far as how both fear impacts them and also how logical of characters they are. So that's kind of what the whole book is about. So Batman and the Joker, each of them have either gotten over or were never afraid of anything, and because of that, they're I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
No, you're okay.
But like each of them is not afraid of anything, and for one of them with Batman, he's fully. I mean, not that Batman's not afraid of anything, but he's gotten over his fear, right? And so, he is like all logic, and Joker is the entire opposite of that, and they both are able to get to that place because of their lack of fear, and then everybody else in the middle of that chart are entirely motivated by their fears. So like Two-Face is all about the idea of fate, and he's kind of afraid of making choices because he thinks everything is already fated. And then and all of this is a little bit spelled out in the book, but like Scarecrow is all about paranoia, and so they all kind of fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and the Scarecrow one specifically is spelled out like really obviously, but I really like the Joker moment where he's like, you look at somebody like Scarecrow who claims to be, you know, like they are the fear guy,
Yeah.
but that's like I'm much more of that than he is. Like he comes from it from this point of view, while I come at from this way. Like I am the embodiment of fear, while he has to produce fear out of paranoia.
Yeah, he's
That was pretty
compensating
interesting.
because of insecurity.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and Joker isn't afraid of anything, and that's why he
His
sees.
house is just a giant 66 death trap, but with really,
Yeah.
really messed up consequences.
But I like the way Englehart handles the classic Batman Joker dynamic, the yin yang thing,
Yeah.
and how like crazed Joker's logic or lack thereof is about the whole thing. Where like Joker is completely overthought this and is like at a really insane place with it, and Batman comes in and says, because Joker says something along the lines of it's a cosmic joke. And Batman's like, yeah, no, we're just doing things.
Yeah.
you know, like no, each of us are making choice. Like in a weird way, Joker almost sees their relationship like Two-Face sees the universe, where like we're fated to do this. And he says like I'm perfect because of this whole like screwed up logic was hilarious to me. Like I'm perfect because I'm always going to try to kill you, but I'm always going to fail because our relationship is perfect. So my flaw makes it perfect. It makes no sense. But
if I were to kill you, then you wouldn't be perfect.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But because you were perfect and I can't kill you, it makes me perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's part of that whole machine. And
I like
that puts them above everybody else.
I like that he gives that whole speech, and Silver St. Cloud's like, "What?"
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Her reaction to that is amazing.
Oh, it's wonderful. Yeah. No, I kind of really like the statement that this book makes on their relationship overall, because, like you said, Joker sees their relationship, while Batman sees his relationship with every criminal, and I think that's a really interesting idea.
Yeah, where Joker sees himself as the other side of the coin, and you can't have that perfect logic with Batman without the perfect chaos with the Joker. But you're right, Batman sees it, and I think that's why you need other villains in this book. I think that's why it doesn't feel arbitrary that they're there, because you need the examples of, and we also don't use too many of them. But and the ones we pick are not willy-nilly either, because it's all about fear and it's all about dichotomy.
Yeah, exactly.
And both of those guys embody those, represent those things respectively. But I've always said that nearly every member of Batman's Rogues Gallery is a foil for Batman in some way or another. And so like the Joker is just the most extreme version of it. He's not special in that he is Batman's opposite, because all of Batman's villains are his opposite in some way. Like with Two-Face and Scarecrow in particular, Two-Face is the duality of Batman if he couldn't reconcile it. I've always said that. And Scarecrow is Batman if he let his fear consume him. Like every one of them has this.
Yeah, exactly.
In a different way. And then Joker is chaos to Batman's order. And Joker's you could break down arguably more than some of the others, where there's maybe like more examples, more pieces to it, because he's the more extreme, opposite of Batman. Like, he doesn't look in any way whatsoever like Batman.
Yeah,
And
no, he's the exact opposite.
yeah, but you can see similarities in every other Batman villain, and then Joker ends up being like his exact opposite.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. No, all of that stuff I think is really great, and Englehart just does a really good job both in his original run and this at capturing that just like classic Batman versus his villains thing, and he really understands why they're interesting.
And I think it's a lot like Ego, even though that was a much shorter story,
Mhm.
in that it's a great encapsulation of what this character is all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
It has space to explore more pieces of it, but like just like Ego, we go back to the origin again,
Yep.
and through
Yeah,
a
we add like
hallucination.
a little bit to it as well. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that. Sorry, we stopped like right in the middle of your breakdown of this plot, and then we
Oh,
just started analyzing. But
my breakdown was essentially I laid out the overall thing, and then just Scarecrow and Two Face were doing things as well. That was pretty much it.
yeah, well, then I guess we can get to
And we
the
kind
ending
of explained that anyways, but
and
just by
talk about
talking
that.
about it.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to apologize if I stepped on your synopsis.
No, I was pretty much done anyways.
Um, where were
I
we?
don't. I don't know if you had this cap.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
go ahead. Go ahead. I'll remember it. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, reading this, I was like, man, how do we not have a Batman movie that ends with like a big trap house climax like this? Like that's something we need to have.
Yeah, maybe my favorite thing about the story is that the Joker has a house. I
You just want to
love.
call it Joker's house.
Yeah, I do. I love Joker's house so much. Do you remember the other day, or maybe it was yesterday, when I told you that I was suddenly kind of in the mood for like survival horror games, and I haven't played enough of those, and I wanted to play like a haunted house thing.
Yeah,
It's because of this.
it's because of this.
I took one look at that of Joker's scary booby trap house, and I went, oh, I want to play some survival horror now. And then today I got
so cool.
And then today I got to the end of this, and it becomes kind of a survival horror thing in the last issue. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly where I thought it was going to go, or where I was hoping it would go. And it went there, and it's glorious. The saddest thing is when the house blows up.
Yeah,
because I want Joker to keep living there. I want that to be like a staple of Joker. Like he lives in this screwed up, dilapidated house. Like he lives in the Addams Family house.
Every time he breaks out, Batman's like, dude, I know where you live. Like, you just keep coming back to this house.
Well, he and Two-Face have that conversation where he's like, I don't really like that you know where I live now, Two-Face. And Two-Face goes, well, you know where I live. And if you want to continue this argument, you can come find me. That whole thing was great. Oh, and the other reason that it doesn't feel like the other villain selections are arbitrary or that they shouldn't be here is because of the way they interact with each other, particularly Two-Face and Joker, and how we break down their respective worldviews and how they're both, like scary, screwed up, psychotic Batman villains, but in very different ways. Like, I love that compared to the Joker, Two-Face in this looks real down to earth, and like he has a code that makes sense, and like his code is nuts, but he's like, I had this weird respect for Two-Face in this, where he goes, Joker, you can't run for governor because you're making a mockery of everything that I stood for when I was a DA. And Joker goes, I make a mockery of everything. That's what I do. And I love that. Like, again, seeing the like different characters that fall on a scale between Batman and Joker. There, it's about order and chaos. I loved that whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then they kind of go to war a little bit for an issue. Kind of.
And like that could have gone on longer for me. Like I would
Yeah.
have loved to have seen them duke it out for 2 or 3 issues.
Yeah, I kind of wondered because it's been so long since I've read this. There was certain things that kind of fell out of my brain. Like I remembered pretty much the last issue like wholesale, and then here and there I would remember scenes. But of course, the Joker house trap is the big thing that stuck with me. But
Oh, I didn't know you had read this before.
oh yeah, I had the Marshall Rogers collection. I think I got it when I was like 11 or like 12, around there, and I read all that stuff, and I was like, "This is wonderful! Some of the best Batman I've ever read." And I haven't read that stuff in a long time. But so when Joker blows up Harvey Dent's hideout and kills his Harvey Dent clone, I was like, okay, uh, like is Two-Face gonna come back for revenge? But then when we see him again, he's just kind of broken and injured in the hospital. But you could have done something more with that.
Yeah,
But it's
I
one of the most
wondered.
beautiful pages, I think, that explosion.
Yeah, I'll go back to it and linger on it for a second. Is it? Yeah, it's right in
Yeah,
here. So
I was one before, yeah.
you get this explosion, and then you get this really cool shot of the of the Two-Face clone that has, I guess, am I understanding this right? He's gotten half his face burned, and for some reason he's on like Joker toxin.
Yeah, so I think the idea is that he comes in and like there's Joker toxin, and then the building explodes. So he's got both.
That's great. I
Hmm.
kind of expected, like, he looks like he's dead there, but I thought maybe he would come back and be like a Joker Two-Face or something
That'd be crazy.
for a second, because that felt like a big reveal of a character. And then the actual revelation we do is kind of just as crazy, where we
But the
have
second we
a
introduce the
second
Harvey Dent
clone that is
clone,
all Two-Face. Once again, put in just as a plot device to get Batman to the next plot point. Did you notice that? He
oh
shows up
yes,
and no, I'm the opposite of Harvey Dent in every way, so I freaking hate Harvey Dent. Hey, Batman, I'll tell you where Joker is, and then where his house is, and then Batman goes, thank you, I really appreciate that, and then he just leaves.
no, I did notice that because the second we introduced the Harvey clone, I was like, okay, we're gonna do a full bad side clone, right? And then there's like a figure kind of shadowed that you don't really get to see, and I was like, okay, it's probably that. And then yeah, he only shows up to give the address, which made me laugh really hard. But I love the idea that yeah, the Harvey Dent one is loyal to a fault, kind of with Two-Face, where he's like, I will do everything that you tell me to.
Yeah, he's programmed to obey him.
Yeah, and then the bad one's like, I don't care about this guy. Screw him. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that makes sense as the two sides of his personality,
Hmm.
because you put them together and they can't make decisions together, and they just flip a coin and assume it's all fate. But if you separate them out, like one of them is obeys the Harvey Dent, and then the other one is all rebellious teenager.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the best Two-Face scenes as well. Is right before the Harvey clone dies, when they're walking into the building, and Two-Face has to flip the coin to decide which door he's gonna go in through.
Yeah,
And the clone's like, yeah, like I don't have to do that. I don't have that duality. And Two-Face is like, yeah, well, you just like don't understand fate and like how it's made for us or whatever.
yeah,
I thought that
and
was a really good moment.
and his logic obviously is really deeply flawed, but it kind of crapped me up because he had that whole speech to Joker where he was like, you cannot do this, you cannot run for governor, it's wrong, and it's against what I stand for. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, you keep saying that everything that happens because it's fate.
Mhm.
So like what about that then?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then there's also one of the other best Two-Face moments where Batman walks over and flips the coin. Where
Yeah,
it lands on the bad side.
and I love that moment where he goes, I really don't want to have to do this to him.
And then he flips it to good, and he's like, look, it's the good side. You have to do the right thing. and Two-Face freaks out like Riddler in the Batman. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's really funny. And you're
He's
like,
like,
I
no,
don't understand how the
can't do
rules of
that.
this
Only I
coin
can
work.
flip
Like, couldn't you just go, well, wait, that doesn't count. I didn't flip it. But no, his rule is whatever the coin is doing right now. Even though there are also places where he goes, well, I know what has to happen, so I'm not gonna flip the coin. Like, he changes rules in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his whole worldview, and I'm not criticizing it, his whole worldview is too simplistic to not have to like make judgment calls with it, and he does not see that at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he doesn't understand it.
He's a walking contradiction,
mm-hmm.
which
and,
is his whole thing, because he's Two-Face.
Yeah. When Englehart, I think, has so much fun writing his dialogue, especially all the puns.
Yeah, this is probably not true, but just reading this, it feels like maybe Two-Face is Englehart's favorite villain. Like,
I can see that. My favorite
and I mean,
is when he hits Batman with a bat, and he's like, the bat meets bat, or whatever, something like that.
And I mean, his Joker is wonderful too, but this is some of the most I've liked Two-Face. And I think that's part of why I said earlier on the Captain Logan show that I don't need Two-Face to actually have multiple personalities. Like, I like this version a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I like both, so
yeah,
I'm fine with either. But I just need him to be fixated on twos, and he needs to have the, be a little bit more like controlled by the coin.
Mm-hmm. Michael Scambody 499 super chat. I want to go ahead and read this now because this was a point I wanted to raise too. He says, I missed the funny, wacky, murderous Joker instead of edgelord, philosophical society Joker like Ledger and Phoenix, Nicholson, Hamill, or perfect adaptations. I mean, I'll say that Ledger is somewhere in the middle of that. Like, there is a playfulness.
He's also a funny Joker.
There's a playfulness to that character too.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the Suicide Squad version is that way, and in Phoenix is kind of that way. But yeah, and I think Joker is kind of like Batman in that that is a really versatile character, and there's a lot of different versions that I think are worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. I think we've just gotten too hyper focused on making Joker scary with a capital S.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think Joker's more scary when he's silly, because it's like he can do something completely ridiculous and then do like one of the most sadistic things you've ever seen.
Well, it makes him more unpredictable.
Exactly. Like that's, I think, some of the best Joker stuff.
Yeah, what makes him scary here is he says, look at, and this is always my favorite take on this too. And just like with Batman, this is also animated series take on him, where I think where he says, I am completely free. Like, I'm not like Two-Face. I'm not gonna have rules. I'm not like Scarecrow. I can't be paranoid because I like the world. I don't need order in the first place. Like, the world already doesn't make sense. I can't be intimidated by anything. And that's really scary. I really like a Joker that is like I said, unpredictable in this way, where he'll just go up to a person and maybe he'll kill you, maybe he won't, maybe he'll leave for a while and come back. Like, you just never know what he's going to do. And this idea of, if you don't vote for me, I'm going to kill you, like, that's a perfect Joker plot to me. Like, I've always loved the Joker that, takes over a TV network and just does like crazy terrible things to people on camera. Like, those are my favorite kinds of Joker stories, because it's sadistic and screwed up, and sometimes he won't do anything, and then sometimes it's terrible. The only complaint I had about this Joker is there's a moment where, and you can say that it's just her not understanding this character, but I don't think that works because the Joker agrees with her. He kidnaps Silver St. Cloud, and that seems like a typical plot point, except they're actually really interesting together. And
Mhm.
when she gets kidnapped, he's impressed with her because she doesn't scream, and she says, um, "Well, I knew you wouldn't kill me because you would have done it already." And I'm like, "No, you don't know that.
Mhm.
Like, this is a super unpredictable Joker. He'll do whatever he feels like in the moment. That's the whole point."
Yeah, then he goes into a whole monologue that's all close-ups of his eyes because they love going into the eyes.
Yes.
About how murder is like sex, and it's awesome.
That is an insane page, and I didn't know what to think of it at first, and then I decided, nah, that's great. Like
Yeah,
that really works.
well, the look of his eyes reads very sexual gratification, and it's
Yeah.
so like, oh. But then he also is the leg lamp from A Christmas Story. And even like with his, oh yeah, there it
Yeah,
is,
it's right
with his
there.
eyes
No, it's
shot. Yeah.
really screwed up.
And even like some of his death traps, like he's got the stairs, turn into a slide. Like that's a classic pratfall thing, but it goes straight into like a bed of spikes. Just, just great stuff. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and
just
there's the other one, the close up of Scarecrow's eye at the top too, where you have the leather strips or whatever.
I didn't notice that before.
Sick. Yeah, yeah, because that's the part where he's talking about how Scarecrow, thinks that he's, the big fear villain.
I mean that's another way in which Joker is Batman's opposite that we're emphasizing here, that he loves murder as much as Batman is afraid of death.
Hmm.
And as much as Batman hates murder, and that's great. Oh, that was a big question I wanted to ask you about earlier, Austin. When you mentioned that we add a little bit to the origin, how much of the hallucination that Batman has about being Bruce Wayne and being afraid of death, or like younger Bruce Wayne being afraid of death, how much of that is a memory, and how much of it is a dream?
So I
Because
wasn't
it's
entirely sure.
talked about sometimes like a memory, and there's stuff in that where I was like, oh, does that actually happen? Like there's something about the the murderer of Joe Chill or whoever, because it's not mentioned, but the murder of his parents in the dream seems to come after him, like he's trying to finish the job. I'm assuming that doesn't actually happen, and that's just in a dream.
Yeah, so it's weird because it also plays like that guy that he was with, like he did see that guy get murdered, and it was something that he repressed. So I'm not entirely sure where it
Yeah,
is. Like,
yeah, that's right. Because
I feel like that
he keeps
part's
talking
always,
about it as memories that he's repressed, and he just now brings back,
but the
which
part where
is that thing
Joe,
Batman Forever almost does, and then cuts it out.
yeah, like the part where Joe Chill chases him and then he like beats him up, I think is probably not real.
Yeah,
But,
that's what I thought.
but I feel like the part where he like walks in and finds that guy dead, it probably is.
I thought the thing about the guy that watches him for a couple of days before he goes off to boarding school, I thought all that was super sad.
Hmm. Yeah, it was absolutely.
Where he's not, he's doing a good thing by being there and helping him get his affairs in order, but
He's not
he
really helping.
he's not appreciating or understanding the emotional side of it.
Hmm.
And he just basically tells Bruce, like, you'll get over it. And
Yeah, he's
I
like,
want
go be a kid, do kid things, go play.
yeah, he's like, he says, go do whatever it is you do. And at one point, Bruce says, I can't stand to be in this house. I'm going to go outside. And he just says, whatever. I love that as a small detail that informs the larger arc of Bruce Wayne. Because I want to think that there is, nobody is going to understand just how extreme a reaction Bruce Wayne has to his parents' death, and
Mhm.
nobody knows about the value he makes, right? So I want to think that there are a lot of little details like that in a young Bruce Wayne's past that help to build to him becoming Batman.
Yeah, like it's not entirely just that one night. It's kind of everything after that. Like nobody nurtured him in a way that could have led him off that trail.
Yeah, and it's a culmination of a lot of people not understanding or having the same passion that he does.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine Bruce Wayne is like angry with people for not being as angry as he is. I've lost Austin for a second. Hopefully he comes back. Hopefully I'm still live. It looks like I am. Well, I'll try to call him back. We're at an hour. We've gone through a lot of this. I'm hoping that we can still talk some about the ending. Because it's kind of crazy. But let me see if I can get him back. I may take a break here in a second and see, like, if he doesn't come back. But apologies, folks. Okay, let me go to a quick break. And hopefully I'll be able to come back with Austin and finish this up. But I don't want to keep talking about it without him. So give me just a minute, guys. And hopefully we'll be right back.
Oh, hello?
Are you there?
Yeah, sorry, my power blinked out. So now I'm on my phone because my internet hasn't kicked in yet.
Oh, no.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
Can I, like, do it? Yeah, this is it. Flipped over, I think.
There you go.
There we go. Sorry about that, everyone.
Yeah, well, thanks for jumping right back on.
Yeah, no worries. Luckily, it only blinked out. It didn't just turn off.
I don't think we have a lot left to do, but I did want to make sure that we talked a little bit about the ending. Austin, talk a little bit about how the relationship with St. Cloud like comes back and then deteriorates again.
Mm-hmm. Bruce and Silver St. Cloud, as we kind of talked about, they see these hallucinations from Scarecrow, and then they rekindle. And she decides she's going to break it off with Evan Gregory, and they're going to get together. So then you have a little bit of a conflict between them, but then she gets kidnapped. So in the Death Trap stuff, Evan Gregory he's like, I'm going to win back my woman. And he goes in with the SWAT team, and they all die, and he ends up just stuck in the house with Batman. And
importantly, he's just trying to save her. I mean, he's a surprisingly sympathetic character, and I don't think they go too far with that to make him too perfect, because I mean, he's angry, he doesn't like Bruce Wayne, but this is a pretty mature love triangle for this kind of material.
Yeah, for sure. I do like that he shows up and he's angry at Bruce, because naturally you would, but at the same time he's even more mature than Bruce is about it, because Bruce is like, you're a good guy, I hope you know that. And Evan Gregory's like, we don't matter in this scenario, it's all about her. Like
yeah, she's kidnapped, we gotta go take care of that.
Yeah, like it's all about her, it's not about us.
Like there's some righteous anger there, but I really like how relatively reasonable everybody is, because even on Bruce Wayne's side, I love how one of the first things he says is, okay, do you want to go at it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what we did to you is terrible.
Are we gonna go fight?
I don't feel good about that. Like, but he doesn't. Bruce Wayne doesn't throw the guy under the bus. Even before that, before like Evan knows about it, it's like, well, she and I have both decided that we want to rekindle our relationship, and she happens to be with this other guy. Like, she doesn't hide it from him. They don't have an affair. Like, they're gonna break it off right away. I don't know. Everybody is surprisingly reasonable for the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So Evan Gregory is he gets hit by a clock scythe. And it cuts.
Never thought you'd say that out loud, especially in a thing with that Clock King.
Yeah, no, Joker has a clock scythe. Clearly, Joker, like you, Cap, is a fan of Clock King.
He's a giant Clock King fan.
Yeah, so it cuts off his arm and leg, and then Batman says to Silver St. Cloud, he's like, hey, he's gonna need you now, so you should probably stay with him and nurse him back, and then we can get together afterwards. And she obviously doesn't want that because she wants a life with Bruce Wayne, and as she says, doesn't want to be loaned out to another guy for a time.
I love that. And I think Englehart kind of earns her, screaming moment there, where like that could have. I'm saying everything relative to the kind of story we have, because again, it is very very melodramatic, but like it doesn't go too far, I don't think, because for the material anyway, because it's a crazy idea that he throws at her, and he's, as he says, like, he's just thinking logically. He's not thinking about the human element. And I like that goes back to driving home the point of Batman, like, steering into logic in order to not be ruled by fear. And that's what the whole book has been about. And so we even tie their relationship and why it can't work into that whole idea. And that's what makes it really tight at the end. Like, it really sticks the landing thematically.
Yeah, exactly. And then
also, can I just say real quick with this page that I was shocked that the what do you call it? The cover for this issue is actually in the issue. I was really surprised by that, because it's
a little
really
bit more toned down in the issue, because it's like her full shirt's kind of ripped open in the cover, but outside of that, like, that is exactly what's happening.
It looks a lot more sexual on the cover, but I couldn't believe it when he pulled the brand out. I was like, oh, the cover actually happens.
Well, I like Joker's logic that he's like, well, clearly you're somebody that Batman really cares about, so I'm going to put my J on your face, and he has to look at that every time he sees you.
I wasn't even thinking about that as his motivation. Does he say that?
I think he says something like that. I don't think it's exactly like that. Like, I'm
because you're right, that has to be what it is. Yeah, it's like,
But he says something like that.
Yeah. Like, if Batman cares that much about you, that makes you part of our relationship, so I'm going to label you.
Yeah, now whenever Batman sees you, he will see, like, he'll be reminded of me.
Joker with his tongue out at the bottom of this page is just freaky weird. I love this Joker. He's so messed up. I have a question.
Go for it.
Well, there's this moment where he's wacky panel layouts on this page too, and this is not hallucination.
And this is just because he's fighting Joker and he's the madness.
Sometimes Joker has a Jay Leno chin, and it's really funny. I'm trying to find it. There's this moment where he is. Oh, I think it's right here where Joker is coming at her with the brand. And then
Batman's got that crazy pose where his arms are like that.
And then it goes to a new panel, and off panel Batman says, "Good job, Silver." I don't know what she did.
Oh, I think she like throws him off because he's about to do it, and then she says something that like maybe stays his hand for a second.
Okay, that action was not communicated well enough in the panel to me. I could not figure. I looked at it a few times. I had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, I think it was something like that where she kind of stayed his hand for a second, which gave Batman that like extra second to get in.
Okay. I figured you'd be able to explain it to me. I did not understand.
Batman's apparently super strong because he rips through metal beams in order to get in there.
That's true. That's a really animated series looking shot at the bottom there.
Oh, 100%. There, especially with their Bruce Wayne, there's like a lot of moments in the face where I'm like, that is animated series.
Yeah, a lot of the angular chin.
Yep.
Michael Spimgotti down on Super Chat. Thanks for the support tonight, man. Do you prefer Neil Adams or Year One Batsuit? Neil Adams typically, but I am certainly partial to that Batsuit. The nice thing is you can cop out and say, well, it's different eras, so that's what I want him to be wearing when he starts. But then, like I almost don't want to compare them. Like but if I had to look at a suit for say like a whole 3 or 4 seasons of television or something. Yeah, base it more on the Neil Adams suit.
When I love the year one suit, it's just when I close my eyes and think Batman, I think of like that era, like the blue and gray and the yellow oval. Like that is just what I think of when I think Batman.
This Joker model is also much closer to my Joker model too.
Sure, yeah. He has like a bit more of a Jay Leno or Bruce Campbell chin than he would have had in the original Englehart run, but
yeah, and I just mean with the costume he's wearing, the face is
no,
sometimes a little over the top.
Yeah, because it's very different than how he looks in that original run, like in Joker Fish.
This is the saddest moment where the Joker house is burning down. I love the Joker house too much. I don't want it to burn down.
Well, I just think that's such a beautiful, like, this is the end of their romance. Like, he didn't even say goodbye. She turns around and he's gone.
Oh no, you're right. It is literally really sad. But I was just talking about the house.
I mean, it is sad that we'll never get to go back to that. You should just write your own miniseries, Joker's House.
I should. That's a great idea. I had so much fun with the Joker house. I thought that was an awesome idea.
Well, like I said, that was the big thing that stuck with me. Like when I went back to this book, the main thing that I remembered from reading it like over a decade ago was everything in that final issue. Like even down to
no, that'll stick with me.
The exact way Evan Gregory is mutilated. Like,
again, that's the craziest. I never saw that coming.
Yeah.
Well, and what I really liked was it seemed like for a minute an easy excuse for her, because it didn't go the way I thought it was going to. It looked like an easy excuse to get back to like a regular status quo, because we know that he doesn't actually get with Silver St. Cloud because this, takes place in the past sometime. And so you gotta write that out somehow, because he's not going to keep going with that relationship. And I thought what was going to happen is Silver would go, Bruce, I'm sorry, but he really needs me, and I can't be with you, at least right now. And the assumption would be she nurses him back to health and then kind of falls back in love with him, or all of this is too traumatic for her, and she decides that, she was right in the first place, and she can't be around Batman all the time. But no, it's the opposite of that. She goes, no, this firmly, plants the idea for me that Batman is important and necessary, and I don't mind taking the risk with being with him. And then Bruce is like, well, yeah, but what about this guy? He's gonna need moral support. And then, like you said, she's like, well, I'm not gonna be loaned out like that.
Yeah.
So when she leaves him at the end, then my question is, does she go back to the senator because he really does need that moral support, or does she leave both of them? And he's
I don't know.
Just like half limbless without her. Like, that's awful.
We got to read that Kevin Smith. What is it? Widening Gyre. I think he brings her back in that. So
the Widening Gyre.
We got to read that to find out. But I assume she probably gets back with him.
I watched back when those were coming out years and years ago. I watched a review once where a guy goes, in this month in Widening Gyre, the gyre widens further.
That's awesome.
That always stuck with me.
Beautiful.
But yeah, when I said this ends real abruptly, like not in that like I needed any kind of aftermath or anything, but just that I wanted this to be the end of an arc of a thing that keeps going.
Mm-hmm. You just want more of this take, really.
Yeah, which is just a testament to how much fun it is.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's such a downer ending, man. Like, that's such a weird feeling when you're 2 pages from the end of a thing and you have no idea how depressed you're going to be when it's over.
Well, yeah, and I think like his main run also ends on that kind of sour note too.
Yeah, it's very Daredevil in that way, where it's like, yeah, he's just never going to be happy.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of those places where you can tell that Englehart was a Marvel guy that
Yeah,
came
good
to
call.
DC.
And again, it's just about that, right? I mean,
Hmm.
it's that classic, Batman refuses to change story where he's. I like that within the course of this, he has kind of a revival moment where he's when he gets those memories back, he uh, remembers why he was doing this in the first place, and it just affirms his life choices. And he goes to Scarecrow and he goes, well, you were really an idiot for hitting me with fear toxin the way you did, where I went to that even deeper fear, because it just it just reinforced everything I'm already doing.
Hmm.
That was a great
Yeah.
moment.
And then Scarecrow's like, well, I gave myself steroids.
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
So I'm stronger than you expected. Because that's the thing with this is that Englehart's Batman isn't like perfect like we often do. Because you're kind of talking about how Scarecrow was able to get that capsule on him, but he's getting sucker punched throughout this
That's
and
true.
taken out by villains.
Yeah, but that's more of a detective thing where I'm like, I feel like
No, I
he'd
agree.
catch that. Like,
I agree. I just mean like his take on Batman is very flawed, I think.
yeah, we're like he's as driven as a perfect Batman, but he's more like you and me in that there's only so much you can do.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Every now and then a Harvey clone will knock you out with some sort of science machine.
Oh, real quick,
Yeah.
that was the other. I sent you this panel because it cracked me up. So I'm glad I
Oh
didn't.
yeah, I know what you're
I'm
talking
glad I didn't
about.
forget about this. So Doctor Double X, he goes, Batman, you can't do anything to me. I haven't done anything illegal. And then later on, it comes up that, well, yeah, you did because you took money from Two Face.
Yeah, because
But okay.
Silver's like, well, did you catch Two Face? He's like, yeah, but it didn't really mean anything. He was crying in the rain because his clone died. And she was like, well, did you catch Doctor Double X? He's like, no, he didn't do anything illegal.
He
And
didn't
she's
do
like,
anything
well,
illegal.
I mean, he was
He goes,
taking stolen money.
he goes. So as soon as he said that, I was like, well, wait a minute. It can't be legal to do the genetic engineering he's doing. And then an issue later, Bruce Wayne actually utters the line, cloning's not illegal. And I went, really? Like, just in this universe or in the real world? Because this is 2005. This is well after like stem cell research is banned and stuff. Like, we made a big deal in the late 90s about how cloning, no, that's illegal. And I was very confused by this.
Well, and then later on, Batman gives another reason where he's like, I could probably take him down, but do I really want to? Like, other villains will go to him.
It
It's
almost,
another way to catch them.
in the context of this thematically, it almost comes off like Batman is just ignoring Dr. Double X because he's not a foil for Batman. He's not one of his opposites. He's just a guy who's maybe vaguely doing illegal things.
He's like, I don't want to mess with that guy. He's making weird clones.
I mean,
Creepy.
he does have a fear like Batman's other villains. His fear is of the law.
Mhm. Yeah, I do like that you constantly have things that will show up, and he's like, look, I didn't do anything illegal, okay? I'm fine. I'm perfectly of my own rights.
He's really straddling the fence there. But yeah, overall, this is wonderful.
Mhm. No, this is a great book. There was a part of me that was like maybe a little worried that I would come back to it, and I'm not a kid anymore, and I wouldn't like it as much. But no, this is still really great stuff.
Yeah, and like I kind of said earlier, I like the balance it's finding between the fun silly comic stuff and And that it's able to get as dark as it gets at the end, and I'm buying it, and I'm sucked into that. But also just the blend with the soap opera stuff. Like it's real X-Men in that way, where I'm not reading past that stuff. I like having to live with that so I can get the fun stuff. Like that's also part of the fun of it.
Yeah, I agree.
I was shocked that I liked this love triangle as well as I did. Like it's actually quite good.
Yeah, no, I agree.
For anybody who thinks that I always just see a love triangle and immediately shut down and I'm done and I hate it no matter what it is. Like, no, this is an okay one.
Yeah, no, you're on the fence of or on the side that if X-Men 3 just ended with Cyclops having his leg and arm cut off, then the love triangle would have been perfect.
Yeah, they should have been looking at this. That would have been
exactly. Yeah,
that would have been a great choice. This was coming out just as that movie was being made. They totally could have done that.
Exactly. Brett Ratner really should have been doing his homework.
He should have been reading every comic on the stands, even that's not X-Men.
Exactly.
Well,
I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
I was going to say, anything else you've got, Austin?
No.
I'm glad you picked this.
Yeah, I'm glad that we finally got to this because it's wonderful.
I want to get this in singles now.
Yeah, I wonder how hard it would be.
This one's got to go in my boxes.
Oh, and now I just remembered I should also mention the weird naming thing with this now with Englehart, because of course this is Dark Detective, but if you ask Englehart, this is Dark Detective 2, and his original run is Dark Detective.
Okay, why?
I don't know. Because he's a funny guy.
Yeah, a lot of comic creators get kind of seem like crazy people later in life, especially.
Yeah.
Like Neil Adams was absolutely like that.
Yeah, I never read it, but I heard that Odyssey book was like incomprehensible.
Well, that's true. Like, yeah, some of these guys also their work gets great, and Frank Miller's like that. But I mean, like Neil Adams, the guy, like he was just.
Okay.
He became an odd duck.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
And I had a few like personal interactions with him where I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. Like,
that's beautiful.
Like, I love Neil Adams, but he was just always like peddling stuff and trying to sell you things.
Oh, that's really funny.
Yeah, when Jason met him, and he was really nice to kids, but like Jason was like 6 or 7, and he was like hard selling Jason stuff.
Like what?
At a con.
Like
I don't know, like Prince and stuff. Just anything
okay.
Jason showed a passing interest in. I was like, he's 7.
That's awesome.
Anyway, well, guys, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it. We're going to be back in a couple weeks with another Batman thing. I haven't decided what yet. Like I said, I'm between 2 or 3 things right now.
Yeah, I know my next pick, but you'll find that out next time.
And I already know what that is, I think, unless you changed it.
No, it is the thing that we talked about.
Cool.
So Cap knows, but everyone in the audience.
Yeah, the Shadow knows.
Exactly.
Yeah, whatever I pick for next time, especially just for the sake of variety, it's probably going to be something really recent.
Yeah, no, that's cool with me.
I think, but I don't know. I could change my mind. Anyway.
Yeah.
Once again, appreciate you guys. We're going to be back tomorrow night with a mini marathon on some new adventures of Batman, which we've never done just a straight marathon for, like just that show. We're going to do 5 different episodes picked by the top super chatter from the Captain Logan show tonight, who I think knows that show and is going to send me a list.
Yeah, we told us to beware, so
he's going to pick nothing but the worst episodes of that show.
Oh no.
I was going to make a joke, but I'm struggling to remember episodes I really hate of that season.
Yeah, and I've seen so few episodes of that season that the only thing I really remember is Over the Edge.
I'm real rusty. It's been a long time. See, I was going to say like Lock Up, but I'm like, like Lockup always seemed kind of lame to me, but like, is that a bad episode? Like, I don't know. And then I've never really cared for the baby doll stuff, but people love that. Like,
Oh, people really. I see. I thought the baby doll thing was before that. Is that part of the New Adventures?
I she might be introduced in the previous season, but she definitely has an episode that I think that's
Oh,
where
okay.
I want to say that's where she debuts, but I could be wrong.
Oh, okay. I just know people really love that first one. I didn't even know she came back.
I know that stuff real casually. Like I think I've seen all those episodes over time, but when I was a kid, I didn't care for the designs, so I didn't watch it as closely as I did the other show. I've come
Yeah.
around on it some as I've gotten older, but I used to be real down on it because it's that I don't want things to be different thing, and I didn't like the emphasis on the sidekicks.
Yeah. Well, I just always thought that the designs were weaker, and I would watch through all that show and then hit that point and be like, I'm gonna watch something else.
It's
But
just
I know
inconsistent.
most like the early stuff way better because I always start it and then at some point I'll drop off.
Yeah. The designs are real inconsistent. Like some of them I like just as well or better, and others their Riddler looks kind of bad, and Joker without
Mickey
lipstick
Mouse look, yeah.
is weird, and that Bane is hilarious. Like I'm fine with that Bane. It makes me laugh.
The Bane design is better than the first Bane design. Same with Scarecrow.
I was gonna say the Scarecrow is pretty great. Oh, AMC says Lock and Baby Doll are both in animated series. Well, I don't remember which episodes I don't like then.
Yeah, no, I thought Baby Doll was still in the old art style, but it's been so long.
I know there's some weird, creepy ones though.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seemed like
Scarecrow's Jeffrey Combs. I forgot about
yeah.
that.
He doesn't start as Jeffrey Combs. I think Scarecrow has
that.
2 or 3 different voices.
Well, he's got 3 designs too, so like that's a character I think they really struggled with.
Yeah,
his first design is not great.
I like the Scarecrow episode in that series. Do you remember that? Where
no,
he's got the toxin that does the opposite, that takes away your inhibitions.
No, I don't remember.
So
that.
Instead of making you afraid, it has people like jumping off of buildings to their death, like laughing because they don't think anything's going to happen to them. It's great.
That is great. Well, I like some of their Scarecrow episodes. It was just, I think, his design, it took them a while to nail.
Yeah, I agree. Well, anyway, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and we will see you again real soon. I was Captain Logan. I can't even talk anymore. And this was Austin the Day Ghost. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, see ya.